Hey guys, how's it going? Today I want to do a retrospective on a phone that I haven't really talked about too much in my YouTube channel. I've only done one video on this phone, and this is the Blackberry Priv. This is a pretty unique phone in my opinion because this is, as far as I know, the very last vertical slider to have come out. So vertical slider is, of course, a phone that slides up like that, right? Slides up vertically. As far as I know, this is the very last phone that was made by a major company that has this form factor, right? Because now we've seen some landscape sliders like the FX Tech Pro, but we still haven't really seen any vertical sliders, right? Any portrait sliders. This is the very last one. So the Blackberry Priv, just to go over some of the history and the specs, this phone is BlackBerry's very first Android phone. So after the failure of the BlackBerry 10, that's not because of the operating system, by the way. It's just because any operating system that's not iOS and Android has no chance to ever make a dent in the market because they don't have enough developer support to make the apps, and they don't have the base, right? Once you don't have the apps, you don't have any, you can't attract people to actually use the ecosystem, right? So pretty much any operating system that's not Android or iPhone is doomed to fail, really, right? So that's what happened to Windows Phone, BlackBerry OS, Sailfish to an extent as well. Any operating system that's not iPhone or Android is pretty much going to set up to fail, right? It's doomed to fail, just because it is kind of a duopoly market right now. It's very, very hard to make a new smartphone operating system because everyone just use apps from one of those two top operating systems, right? So BlackBerry OS, Windows Phone, those operating systems aren't bad. It's just, right, you can't enter a saturated market that's a duopoly and really expect to lure people away, right? It's just very, very difficult. So that's not BlackBerry's fault. Anyways, BlackBerry 10 OS failed, and of course BlackBerry had to find some way to survive, and they realized that the problem with BlackBerry was the OS, right? Because they kind of transitioned too late. BlackBerry was a very stubborn company. They kept going with their own operating system for many years. And then finally they gave in and decided to use Android. Just like how Microsoft's doing right now, right? Microsoft used Windows Phone for many years. The HP Elite X3, which I've covered before, was the last great Windows Phone. And then after that, they decided to give up for a while and then come back onto the market with the Microsoft Surface Duo, which of course uses Android. So sooner or later, everyone just gives up on their own operating system and realizes, okay, let's just go with Android. It's pretty much the only way you can really break into the market, right? Because Android has all the apps that people already use, right? People already want. They're all on Android, and really there's no way out of it, right? Microsoft realized this, BlackBerry realized this, okay? So yeah, this phone is BlackBerry's very first Android phone. It came out in 2015. I got mine in early 2016. I reviewed it, and in that review I said that this phone, while I like it because it's an Android device and it has some BlackBerry specific features and it has a slide up keyboard, I really do think that this phone has a lot of promise for it, right? It's a very, very interesting device because I feel like there's a lot of promise in this device. It's just the execution wasn't that great, like the battery life wasn't very good, and there was a lot of hiccups on my phone. Maybe it's just my software was buggy or whatever. I just overall prefer the BlackBerry Passport, which I also did a retrospective of a few months ago. I do prefer the Passport to the BlackBerry Priv, but I do want to look at the Priv again because I do think that this phone deserves a bit more love. It is BlackBerry's very first Android phone, which, by the way, is actually made by the company BlackBerry. It's not made by TCL. It is made by the original BlackBerry company, i.e. Research in Motion. Not TCL or Chinese manufacturers. This is actually made by BlackBerry. And it is the very last, as far as I know, the very last vertical portrait slider to have come out on the market. And this is 5 years ago, right? So it just goes to show there really isn't that many sliders on the market anymore. So the specs are actually fairly good for the time, I would say, because this is actually an OLED display, right? This is an AMOLED display, a 5.4-inch display, 1440 by 2560. So the resolution display is actually very, very good for the time, right? So this was before iPhone even used OLED. So this was back in 2015. I know a lot of Android phones used OLED at the time, but props to BlackBerry for going with a very high resolution OLED display. in 2015. So there's nothing wrong with the display. The display on the Priv is actually very, very good, and much better than any other BlackBerry before it. And actually after it too, because I believe the Blackberries that came after it didn't even use OLED. So there's something special about the Priv actually as well, that it used OLED screens. And the TCL Blackberries didn't even use that. So that's pretty impressive. And it runs Android 6, which is an old operating system Android, but that's what it was in 2015. Snapdragon 808 is the processor, which was a kind of, I want to say the very top end processor, but it was maybe a little bit better than the mid-range in 2015. And then it had a micro SD card slot, 32 gigs of storage space, and 3 gigs of RAM. The camera here is interesting as well, because they actually did a collaboration with a German optics company called Schneider Kreuznach. So Schneider Kreuznach is actually more well known for large format cameras, which not a lot of people use. So they might not be so well known for mainstream consumers, but it's interesting that they partner with Schneider Kreuznach. Anyways, they have that branded lens right there, 18 megapixels f2.2 with optical image stabilization, HDR panorama. As I experienced, if I remember correctly, this camera wasn't the best, because BlackBerry cameras are never the best. But it was perfectly acceptable, I think. It was definitely better than other BlackBerry devices, right? Because I remember using the BlackBerry Key 1 for a while as my main phone, and the camera on that sucked. And I think the Priv camera was actually even maybe better than the one on the Key 1, I think. But definitely, you know, not as good as an iPhone or a Samsung or something. This is not a flagship camera because it's a BlackBerry, but it is pretty impressive for a camera on a BlackBerry device, right? Because BlackBerries usually are not known for their cameras. And yeah, charges with micro USB, because that was pretty much the standard of the time, was micro USB. So micro USB and a headphone jack, which is also pretty standard of the time, right? Headphone jacks didn't really go away until the iPhone 7 came out, which was in 2017, right? So back in 2015, pretty much every phone had a headphone jack. It was just required. You got volume buttons on the side here, and then you got a special button here, which on other Blackberries previously launched the BlackBerry Assistant, which was supposed to be a competitor to, you know, Google Now or Google Assistant, Siri, and Cortana at the time. But BlackBerry Assistant, I think I did a video of it, wasn't very good. Bixby, right, is another one. But BlackBerry Assistant was not very good. It was not as good as pretty much any of the competitors. So they eventually got rid of it, because BlackBerry OS 10, that was what BlackBerry Assistant was on. And then on the Android device, I don't think they have BlackBerry Assistant anymore. So this is just a special programmable key that can launch something. And then on the side here, of course, you have the power button. And then you have the SIM card tray and the micro SD on top in different slots. Usually they combine them, but I think on the Priv they have them in different slots. And then in the back you have the camera and the flash, which is actually a two-tone flash. Yep, that's pretty interesting. And then this material here is not it's not like a grippy material or anything. There's no texture to it. I think it's just the print looks like it's textured, but there's no actually texture to this. Of course, the BlackBerry logo itself is textured, but the back is not, right? It looks like it is, but it actually isn't. Yeah, it looks kind of like carbon fiber or something, but it's actually not. And then the front displays here are actually really nice. Like I said, 5.4-inch OLED, and then the selfie camera is a 2-megapixel standard 720p camera. Nothing special there. So yeah, the special thing about this device, of course, is that it's a vertical slider, which was rare even in 2015, but is even more rare now, considering this is the very last device ever to have this form factor still. And really, this is a pretty bog standard Android operating system. Keys are backlit, of course, and you can also use them for certain gestures and stuff, like you could on the BlackBerry OS 10 and BlackBerry Passport and BlackBerry Classic. You can do that on the Priv as well. So there's a few special apps that they added in for Android. So they added BlackBerry Messenger, which of course you had to have back then, right? Of course, BlackBerry Messenger, doesn't work anymore. But back then, if you were using a BlackBerry, then chances are you probably wanted to use BlackBerry Messenger, right? And then Detect by BlackBerry is this kind of privacy-focused app. So yeah, so it's focused on security and privacy. So apps and permissions, data encryption, screen lock, developer option, device hardware. By the way, I'm using the keyboard to scroll. That's one of the advantages of having a physical keyboard on a BlackBerry device, is that I think they added this in BlackBerry OS 10, but they expanded and they kept the feature in the Priv as well. You can actually use this for scrolling, which is very nice, right? Your fingers don't have to touch the display or anything. You just use the keyboard to scroll, and then you have the full view of the screen, which is great. So data encryption, screen lock, developer options, device hardware, reset protection, so trust app sites. So that's all the stuff you can do with DTEC, and yeah, maybe you can change some other stuff about it. I'm not sure. So yeah, I haven't used this phone all too much. Blackberry Preview. I think DTEC and Blackberry Messenger are two of the major ones. Blackberry Hub is the third major one. So Blackberry Hub is pretty much the same as it was in BlackBerry OS 10. They brought it over, just like with the DTEC and the Blackberry Messenger. So what the Hub does is that it kind of consolidates everything. So all your social media stuff, your Facebook messages, text messages, call logs, you can add on any account on any app, really. So you can add a Twitter account, Instagram. I think you can add any other app, and any notifications will actually filter here. So it's kind of like your notification bar, except it gets filtered into this window, kind of like a giant notification hub that includes your email and calls and everything. So it's just one place where you can see everything, which is a very nice idea. So that's basically what the BlackBerry Hub was. And then you can filter them, and then maybe you can tag them and stuff like that. So I think it's a pretty interesting idea that a lot of people liked on BlackBerry OS 10, so it appeared on the Priv as well. So those are the three major apps that BlackBerry gives you on the Priv on Android that carries over from BlackBerry OS 10. So you got DTEC, BlackBerry Messenger, BlackBerry Hub. And then you have this little side window here, which you can swipe at any time to get a quick glance of the agenda, right? No events today, no events tomorrow. Yeah, so it's just your calendar. And this is pretty useful because BlackBerry, of course, is trying to cater to business users who might have a lot of stuff on their agenda, right? And this is kind of useful, just to have a quick swipe on the side to have access to all this. That's pretty much it. Other than that, it's your bog standard Android 6, right? This is an older version of Android, which I haven't really used for a while, not since 2017, because I remember that was the last year I used my Xperia Z3 Compact, which is a phone I used for a very long time, and that one ran Android 6. So I haven't used Android 6 for a while, but yeah, that's what this is. And then, of course, typing on the physical keyboard is a joy, because this is a BlackBerry keyboard, right? And it's actually made by, this phone is actually made by the original BlackBerry company, RIM, right? It's not made by TCL. So it's the actual BlackBerry keyboard. Yep, not the Unihertz Titan, not any of the imposters. It's the original BlackBerry. So this is, yeah, the keyboard is a joy to use. And of course, okay, yeah, this phone is getting a little bit slow. That's just because it is an old phone, 5-year-old phone. But of course, the display is actually pretty nice. By 2020 standards, this display is actually pretty nice. Of course, it is a 5.4 OLED display, very high resolution for the time. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with the display at all. I think it can still hold up today. It's just the processor is a little bit laggy because it's using older processor. Only 3 gigs of RAM too. But I do like the inclusion of the micro SD card slot and the headphone jack. That's all still appreciated today, right? And then using this keyboard to scroll is pretty cool. I think it can do landscape scrolling as well. Yep, it can. So I can scroll in landscape using this keyboard on the side. Very nice for reading, right? And that's pretty much it. Typing on this is pretty nice, so let's compose a message. It's to myself. Whoops, let's text Amazon actually. There we go. Okay, I'll just make something up. Hey, Amazon. And physical keyboard, of course, for me, doesn't take too long for me to use. So, okay, it's just the Alt key. Can hit any of these, Shift key, and then you have additional symbol selector here as well that you can, swipe for different symbols and stuff like that. Yeah, it's fairly easy to choose. Let's see. Waiting. And of course there's some autocorrect in the suggestion words up here, so you don't even have to type out all the words. See, I can just click that. I think I can actually even swipe up to get the next one. Yeah, I can swipe up to get the next word. See, I don't even need to type. I can just swipe up to get the next word. It's actually interesting to see what they suggest every time. So it's just, they're suggesting a sentence. The important thing, the only thing I can do it for a while back and forth between the two of the most important thing is that the only thing is do. So weird. Okay. Symbol, yeah, symbol gets access to all this. Yeah, I mean, it's still a pretty nice keyboard to use, right? Nice keyboard to use. I think, is this the, okay, that's the voice dictation. Yep, Alt will bring you all these alternate keys. It's an FN key basically. And then the shift, symbol, yeah, that's pretty much it. And there's another shift key here on the other side. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a nice keyboard to use, right? Blackberry key. I don't know if compare this to my Blackberry Key 2. So the Blackberry Key 2 is the most recent Blackberry device that I have. This is from 2018. A lot of people still use the Key 2 actually. But compare the keyboard with the Key 2. Let's see. I mean, it's not that different actually. Of course, yeah, pressing the keyboard is going to launch a shortcut, because you can actually customize each of these keys to launch a different app if you want to. So, yeah. And the Blackberry Priv keyboard is not bad. I think the Key 2 keyboard might feel a little bit more tactile, maybe just because it has a little bit more travel than the Priv. But they're both pretty good keyboards, I think. Not too much different. I mean, they're both good. They're physical keyboards, right? And they're done in a better way, I would say. The Passport's keyboard is a little bit too wide, right? And the keys are easier to hit, but they don't have as many keys. I think there's only 3 rows of keys on the Passport, and it's just too wide, right? It's not a standard form factor. Whereas the Key 2 is probably the one where a lot of people use, and the Key 2 keyboard is actually a lot better than the Key 1 keyboard, right? I've commented on this in the Key 2 review, but I like the Key 2 keyboard a lot better. And the Priv keyboard is fine too. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. So they're both good. I just feel maybe the Key 2 has a little bit more feedback. That's it. But the Priv is good. So yeah, just want to talk about the Priv because it is a very unique phone still. Only thing is, yeah, this battery life isn't very good. Probably because the battery inside of this is not sufficient enough to power this really good display, this high resolution OLED display. And the processor is getting a little bit, you know, long in the tooth now. But I do have to praise BlackBerry for being so unique and innovative, I guess, with this form factor. You still don't see any phones with a vertical slider mechanism anymore, and the Priv was pretty much the last one. The very first BlackBerry with a vertical slider keyboard, by the way, is the Torch, and I have this as well. This is running the old BlackBerry OS 7, of course, from 2010. But yeah, this is BlackBerry's very first slider phone, or vertical slider, is with the Torch. And then, of course, the Priv is the very last. And then the Key 2 right here. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have the BlackBerry Classic. That would also be an interesting phone to look at. But that one doesn't really have anything all too special about it. It's just a standard classic BlackBerry, like a BlackBerry Bold. It's just running BlackBerry 10 OS, and that's really it. And I already have a BlackBerry 10 OS phone, which is the Passport, right? Which is a little bit more unique, I think, than the Classic. But yeah, this old keyboard here is the classic one that people are used to with Blackberries, and I understand that back in the day, this is pretty much the best way to get texting done and emails done. But now, I think, yeah, it's just a little bit too small, like these keys and stuff like that. Right? Of course, you can use them pretty much no problem, but I think the Key 2 keyboard is still probably the best one out of here. And then, of course, I have other keyboard phones like the FX Tech Pro and the Cosmo communicator, which I think I would prefer to these guys just because the keys are a little bit more bigger. But if you're looking for, you know, a BlackBerry type of device, then the Key 2 actually would still be my recommendation. Still pretty cool. Or maybe the Unihertz Titan. I haven't tried that one out yet. But I've heard the Unihertz Titan's keyboard isn't as good as the old Blackberries, from what I've heard on Reddit. But yeah, anyways guys, that's it. That's a retrospective of the Blackberry Priv. Very, very cool, interesting device. The vertical slider makes it unique. It is still the very last vertical slider phone on the market. Not seen any other ones so far. But I really wish that someone would make something like this again. Hopefully that new company that took over the BlackBerry brand name after TCL dropped it, hopefully they will make another BlackBerry Priv-like device, because I really think the Priv is a nice phone. The only thing it really needs is like kind of like a spec bump and a better battery. And that's pretty much it. It needs the latest operating system, Android 11, a spec bump, a better battery, and then that's pretty much all it needs, because this form factor is actually pretty nice. The screen is actually still pretty nice even by today's standards. And the functionality with the headphone jack, micro SD card, of course you got to upgrade this to USB-C. But everything else is pretty nice. Even the camera, you know, is not the best, but nobody really uses Blackberries for the cameras anyways. So anyways, this is my opinion. I think BlackBerry could have a hit if the new company, whoever's taking over the BlackBerry name, if the new company gives the new Priv a try, like making a Priv 2, I think would be an interesting proposition. I really do think that the Priv form factor is really cool, and that they should give it another chance, right? I think the Priv deserves better, deserves another chance, and if they can make another one with updated internals and specs, that would be cool. But keeping the same kind of slide-out form factor, and even the display, this little small curved display is actually still pretty nice. Yeah, but that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions about the BlackBerry Priv or any of the other Blackberries. Just let me know. And that's all. Thanks for watching.